As time went on, Chris increasingly felt worn down. The years piling up behind him felt like a mountain, heavy and silent. Each passing day was like a shuffled deck of cards. Nothing stood out, nothing was memorable, just the same dull routine on repeat. From the outside, Chris's life seemed fine. He had a job, a place to live, and a long-term relationship, but none of it made him feel alive. Instead, he carried with him a vague emptiness. His mind kept asking, is this all there is? What did I miss? Why does everything feel so flat? These worries didn't surface loudly. They ran like an underground stream beneath dry soil, slowly cracking everything around him. In recent years, friends had drifted away without explanation. Loved ones had passed, and achievements at work brought no real pride. The breaking point came one Sunday afternoon when his girlfriend of 5 years walked out of the apartment, leaving behind a sentence that haunted him. I'm sorry, Chris, but I can't stay with someone who's never happy. Alone in the familiar room, Chris sat motionless, a glass of liquor in hand, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Inside him, emotions wrestled between anger and despair, and one question began to form. Can I keep living like this? That night, Chris sat alone on the worn-out sofa. The apartment was eerily quiet. In his hand, a half-finished glass of strong liquor. In front of him, a vague emptiness. Tomorrow was Monday. Back to the same boring accounting job at 9 a.m. like every week for years. But that night, something was different. When the woman he loved left him with the words, "Can't live with someone who's never happy," something in him broke. Not a loud explosion, but a silent collapse. The last fragile threads tying him to routine life slowly unraveled. In that collapse, an old version of Chris, who tried to live by expectations and schedules, died. With no concrete plan and no notice to anyone, Chris booked a one-way flight to China. He brought only a backpack of clothes, a phone, a bank card, his passport, and a vague determination to find something else. He was willing to spend all his savings, trade time and career, everything to search for the meaning of life he'd never truly felt. This wasn't a rash decision. The thought of disappearing had crept into Chris's mind many times before, like a wild dream. But until now, the reasons to stay had always outweighed the reasons to go. This time, it was despair that planted the seed for a journey of freedom. With no destination, no plan, he no longer feared losing anything because there was nothing left to hold on to. Chris boarded the plane with a heavy heart, but a strange sense of lightness, as if at last he had truly begun to live, even in the darkness of an unknown path. Chris arrived in China with a strange blend of emptiness and hope. No plans, no schedule. He simply followed his instincts, letting his feet guide him. With a light backpack on his back, he began a wandering journey through crowded cities and remote villages, from ancient temples to distant forests. Each place he visited, each person he met, became a piece of the puzzle tied to the question he carried deep inside. How do you live a meaningful life? Chris wasn't seeking comfort. He slept in cheap hostels, sometimes camped in nature. He talked to strangers, listened to their everyday stories, and was especially drawn to those considered spiritual masters. People respected for their wisdom and life experiences. It felt as if fate were guiding him. Most of the people he met mentioned the same person, an elderly woman living in a remote area at the foot of the Himalayas, considered a kind of guru by many pilgrims who had sought her out for answers. Chris followed the directions, crossed unfamiliar lands, and finally arrived at the place where she lived. The woman was small in stature but radiated calm and authority. In a quiet moment by the fire, Chris asked her the question he had carried throughout his journey. In your opinion, how can one live a fulfilling life? She looked into his eyes, took a deep breath, and answered in a serene voice, Don't chase pleasure or material success, Chris. Live for things that have lasting meaning. Let go of the ego and grow from within. Live to leave behind a legacy, steady, simple, and true to your essence. Chris sat in silence. Her answer wasn't a formula. It felt like an echo from a deep place he'd forgotten inside himself. Chris continued his journey to France, the homeland of modern philosophy, art, and quiet sidewalk cafes. He had heard rumours that at Café de Flore, one of Paris's iconic coffee shops, there was an intellectual woman who often visited, someone regarded as a modern voice of wisdom and humanity. After a few days of waiting and watching, he finally saw her, elegant posture, sharp gaze, writing in a notebook beside an espresso. Chris took a deep breath, approached her table, and politely asked if he could join her. At first, she was hesitant, but after a bit of persuasion, she nodded in agreement. After a few polite exchanges, Chris asked his familiar question, this time with renewed hope. "In your opinion, how can one live a good life?" She smiled softly, her eyes distant yet clear.